After Station Square is attacked by perfect chaos, Sonic runs through the city streets to try and help the flood victims and rescues a young boy who was trapped in the rubble to return him to his parents. That afternoon, the president signs an authorization form for the scientists to start building a new batch of highly equipped robots to defeat Dr. Eggman once and for all. What the team doesn't realize, however, is that the villain has sent a robot to spy on them and manages to access the system to find out all the details of the project. During the investigation, Eggman discovers that he is the grandson of Gerald Robotnik, the greatest scientist of his time. In an attempt to find out more about his past, he uses a password to access the government database and open a top-secret file. At that moment, the alarm goes off to warn the employees about the invasion and, while the technicians try to expel the hacker, Eggman's robots manage to copy the file. On checking the contents of those pages, Eggman realizes that it is the diary of his grandfather, who was working on the Shadow Project. When he discovers that the creature created by Gerald is in a deep sleep, the scientist decides to go after it in order to wake it up. Hours later, the president is informed of the break-in and asks Rouge for help in finding the person responsible, as well as stealing a file that the technicians were never able to access because they didn't have the password. The hacker also deleted the original copy of the government system. Upon hearing this, Rouge soon comes to the conclusion that Eggman is behind this theft, so the president asks her to find out what the doctor intends to do with the data he has collected from Project Shadow. Meanwhile, Sonic continues to run around the city in order to help the victims who are in danger and finds Bakken trapped under some rubble. After saving him, the Hedgehog leaves and continues his mission while Rouge and Topaz are in the forest looking for a Chaos Emerald. The pair intend to use the jewel as a bargaining chip to convince Dr. Eggman to reveal his plans. However, during her search, Rouge finds a Master Emerald and decides to steal it. When he realizes that the jewel has been taken, Knuckles goes after the thief and attacks her. Seeing her partner in danger, Topaz rushes to her aid and ends up finding a Chaos Emerald. At this point, instead of leaving, the Bat decides to stay and fight for the Master Emerald. After hitting her, Knuckles discovers the thief's true identity and Rouge finds an opportunity to fly away with the jewel. That afternoon, Eggman and his robots break into Project Shadow's hideout because the villain wants to use it to take over the world. Suddenly, a war robot appears to try and stop him and attacks him with its laser beam, but Eggman uses his shield to protect himself. He then strikes back and easily manages to destroy the machine. After eliminating all the robots he finds along the way, the villain reaches his destination and uses the same password to open the cryogenic capsule where Shadow was resting. What the doctor didn't imagine was that the creature created by his grandfather would be identical to Sonic, so he decides to take advantage of this to commit some robberies and frame the Hedgehog. After eliminating the robots trying to catch him, Shadow decides to flee and the president is informed that Sonic has been spotted at the National Art Museum trying to steal a Chaos Emerald. When he hears this, the president is very surprised, as he considered Sonic to be his ally. Disappointed with the Hedgehog's attitude, he orders his guards to find him and arrest him. When they see a reporter on TV saying that Sonic has destroyed several government tanks and fled to some unknown place, his friends are shocked because they know the Hedgehog would never do that. Even after watching the security camera footage, Chris and the other young people who are part of Sonic's team remain convinced that it was all just a misunderstanding. That night, government-designed robots are sent to sweep the sewers, as the agents believe that the blue Hedgehog is hiding underground. Although he doesn't know exactly why he's being chased, Sonic decides to keep running, because he doesn't want to be a prisoner. During his escape, he is forced to leave the sewers and ends up being met on the surface by a giant robot that sends several missiles to eliminate him. When he realizes that he won't be able to destroy the machine on his own, Sonic decides to use his arsenal against it and uses his own body as bait to attract the rockets. After the robot is destroyed, Shadow appears and introduces himself. Upon meeting him, Sonic soon realizes that this is the villain who is dirtying his name and causing him to be persecuted by the government. Furious, the Hedgehog runs towards his enemy, but realizes that Shadow is just as fast as he is. In an attempt to prove his superiority, Sonic challenges his opponent to a race and Shadow accepts. However, during the dispute, the pair are interrupted by the arrival of Chris and his friends, who use a vehicle to surround them. At that moment, Eggman sends one of his robots to follow what is happening and remembers the moment he saw Shadow for the first time. When the Hedgehog came out of the cryogenic chamber, the doctor was confused, believing he had been tricked by Sonic. Just then, Shadow got up and knelt down in front of his master. In gratitude for being woken up, the animal decided to become his servant and promised to follow his every command. To demonstrate his power, Shadow attacked the machine that was chasing Eggman and, with a single punch, managed to knock it out. Seeing his opponent carrying a Chaos Emerald, Sonic tries to take the stone to return it to the government, at which point the blue hedgehog realizes that Shadow is much faster than he is. At that moment, Sonic tries to strike his opponent, but ends up being easily defeated by him. With a single emerald, Shadow is able to activate Chaos Control, and this power was granted to him thanks to the efforts of Professor Gerald Robotnik. Suddenly, the pair hear the police approaching and Shadow decides to flee. When the police approach once again, Sonic is framed and decides to turn himself in. At that moment, he learns that he will be taken to Prison Island, and Chris is deeply saddened to see his friend being unjustly imprisoned. That afternoon, Shadow returns to the lab and Eggman celebrates Sonic's arrest. The villain now needs to obtain 5 more Chaos Emeralds to be able to use the Eclipse Cannon. When he succeeds in this goal, Eggman will have enough power to become the master of the universe. Just then, the Doctor receives a call from Rouge, who contacts him about a business deal. Minutes later, the Bat appears in the laboratory and uses the Chaos Emerald that Topaz found to convince Eggman to give her the information she is looking for. Sonic is now in an underwater isolation cell. Even if he were to escape, the hedgehog would be trapped on an island surrounded by the sea, and he doesn't know how to swim. On that island, there are guards on watchtowers 24 hours a day, as well as surveillance cameras and lasers that detect any movement. It is therefore practically impossible to escape from this prison, which was built with the aim of housing the world's most dangerous criminals. In all the years that the prison has been in operation, there hasn't been a single escape, which means that Sonic won't be able to get out of there so easily. What the hedgehog doesn't realize is that his friend Chris and Mr. Tanaka are on their way to help him free himself and are using a pedal boat to approach the island, as they would be detected as intruders if they used a motorboat. However, even using this strategy to try and go unnoticed, the pair end up being caught by the security guards. However, before the guards can bomb them, Dr. Eggman appears and uses electromagnetic waves to cause a breakdown in the prison system. At this point, he invades the island in the company of Shadow and Rouge and reveals his plan to break into the vault to steal the Chaos Emeralds that are missing from his collection. Eggman then sends missiles to blow up the security rooms and distracts the robots so that Shadow and Rouge can break into the vault. Suddenly, Amy and Tails arrive on the island and are relieved to see Sonic free. However, it doesn't take long for them to realize that this isn't their friend. When Dr. Eggman approaches, Tails doesn't think twice before attacking him and starts chasing the villain with his airship. Meanwhile, Amy goes after Sonic and Shadow breaks into the weapons center with the aim of sabotaging the system so that his partner can get to the safe. After entering the warehouse, Rouge discovers the code and manages to open the safe. After stealing the emeralds, she tells Dr. Eggman and he orders Shadow to program a detonator to blow up the place in 10 minutes. With Amy's help, Sonic manages to get out of prison and, soon after, they both find their friends waiting for them outside. At this point, Sonic advises his team to get off the island and go after Shadow. After traveling all over the island, the hedgehog manages to find him and tries to interrogate his clone in order to discover his plans. When cornered, Shadow decides to start a duel against his opponent and the two start fighting in the forest. After detecting the presence of a detonator on the island, the guards initiate an emergency evacuation protocol and Rouge contacts Shadow to ask for help. When the intruders were detected, the security guards blocked all the doors and the Bat ended up trapped inside the safe. However, Shadow ignores his companion, as he is unwilling to interrupt his battle with Sonic. Suddenly, Eggman contacts Shadow and orders him to leave the island before the detonator is activated. Upon hearing this, Sonic abandons the duel and rushes off at high speed with the aim of getting everyone off the island. Just then, Chris approaches and sees Shadow using his teleportation powers. Immediately, the boy runs towards him and hugs him to prevent him from escaping again. Then they are both sent into the vault and, after taking the emeralds, Shadow uses his power to teleport Rouge and Chris off the island. When the 10 minutes are up, the detonator is triggered and the entire island is destroyed. The next morning, firefighters arrive at the prison in search of survivors, but the news reports that no victims have been found, as everyone managed to get out before the explosion. Upon hearing this, Sonic and his friends are relieved, as they believed Chris had been eliminated. Now that he knows his friend is alive, the hedgehog decides to go out and look for him, without even imagining that Chris is now inside a space colony that was built by Gerald Robotnik and kept secret for all these years. After attaching the Chaos Emeralds to the Eclipse Cannon, Eggman sends a message to the humans that he will soon destroy the Earth. After spreading terror, the man presses the button to activate the cannon and fires a powerful beam of energy at the moon. With a single shot, half the satellite is destroyed. Then, after demonstrating his strength, Eggman orders the humans to surrender to his empire. Otherwise, the entire planet will be destroyed. In an attempt to stop the villain from completing his plan, Tails enlists Chuck's help to build a rocket that will take him into space. While on the run from the police who are trying to capture him, Sonic meets Knuckles and helps him fight off an army of robots. Suddenly, Mr. Tanaka and Cream appear to rescue them. After a few hours' journey, the group arrives in the desert and finds Dr. Eggman's base. After breaking into the pyramid, Amy tries to use her hammer to break down the laboratory door, but is unsuccessful in her mission. So Knuckles sets off in search of the key, but ends up being chased by a robot being controlled by Bakken. At this point, he decides to use his own body as bait to lure the Titan and manages to get him to open the door with one punch. The creature then uses its spinning fist to strike the echidna and crushes Sonic as if he were a mosquito. After recovering from the attack, the pair decide to work as a team to take down the enemy. Soon after, the statue rises and Bakken uses Topaz as a prisoner to force the hedgehog to surrender. Just then, Cream approaches and manages to steal the remote control. After freeing the young girl, the rabbit sends the statue after Bakken and manages to chase him away. Then Tails appears and lands his ship inside the pyramid. While Topaz stays at the base with Cream and Cheese, the rest of the team sets off on a journey into space. Sonic and his friend's goal is to save Chris and stop Eggman from destroying the Earth, but Knuckles is only interested in recovering the Master Emerald. When the ship approaches the space colony, the security system is activated and they end up being hit by a shot. After dodging the laser beams, the team manages to break into the colony and Knuckles goes to find the Master Emerald. However, when he gets there, he runs into Rouge and the two start a duel. During the fight, the echidna manages to strike his opponent, but accidentally knocks her off the bridge. When he sees the bat falling, Knuckles immediately reaches out to catch her and manages to stop her from falling. After being rescued, Rouge decides to leave and allows Knuckles to keep the emerald. Meanwhile, Sonic and his friends arrive at the control room and Amy ends up being captured. Seeing Sonic holding a Chaos Emerald, Eggman decides to negotiate with him and says he'll free Amy in exchange for the jewel. What the villain doesn't realize is that it's a synthetic emerald developed by Tails and doesn't work like all the others. Then, when Sonic places the stone in the center of the circle, Eggman uses a tube to capture him and casts the hedgehog adrift in space along with the synthetic jewel. When the capsule is well away from the colony, Eggman activates an explosive and destroys the tube along with the hedgehog. Upon witnessing the explosion, Amy and her friends despair. Furious, Tails orders Amy and Mr. Tanaka to flee and starts shooting at the villain. While walking through the corridors with the Master Emerald in hand, Knuckles comes across a portal opening right in front of him and Sonic steps out of it. When asked how he managed to teleport, the hedgehog reveals that he used the synthetic emerald to activate chaos control and return to the ship. At that moment, Sonic asks Knuckles to go after his friends and help them get rid of the villain's clutches while he does a final test with that emerald. Meanwhile, Rouge is hacking into Eggman's computers and manages to steal all the files related to the Shadow Project. During the robbery, the Bat gets in touch with Topaz and reveals that she will meet her soon so that they can deliver the file into the president's hands. Suddenly, Shadow appears and destroys the communication device. Listening to the conversation, he discovers that Rouge was never his ally, as she was sent by the government to spy on Eggman. During the battle against Robotnik, Tails seeks revenge for Sonic and uses a laser beam to eliminate the Doctor, even though he knows that this attack will destroy his ship. Luckily, the Fox manages to survive and celebrates his victory. However, it isn't long before Tails and his friends realize that Eggman is still alive and has managed to steal the Chaos Emeralds that were on his ship. After taking the jewels, the villain gets into the elevator and manages to escape. After recovering the files that Rouge had stolen, Shadow discovers that Sonic is still alive and goes after him. As he runs along the treadmill, the hedgehog is chased by his clone, who invokes chaos control to attack him with energy spheres. At this point, Sonic lures his enemy into the engine room and uses his powers to destroy the Eclipse cannon from the inside. When he discovers that his gun has been damaged, Eggman is furious, but orders his assistants to proceed with the shooting. However, when the button is activated, a countdown appears on the monitors along with a message recorded by Gerald Robotnik himself. Before he perished, the old man installed a trap in that space colony, which would be activated as soon as the 7 Chaos Emeralds were attached to the cannon. During the battle against Sonic, Shadow spots the countdown and decides to flee, realizing that he needs to leave the space colony before it crashes into Earth. When he realizes that he has been tricked by his own grandfather, Eggman is furious and discovers that it was all part of Gerald's planned revenge on humanity. In a few minutes, that place will pass through the atmosphere and crash into the Earth with a force as devastating as that of a meteor. Suddenly, Rouge approaches and reveals that she has tried to hack into the colony's computers to change the course of the collision, but all the systems are locked, so there is nothing that can be done to stop the disaster. Realizing that everyone will soon be eliminated, Sonic and Eggman decide to work together for the first time, and the doctor reveals that when he hacked into Prison Island's database, he found his grandfather's diary. Thanks to the energy provided by the Chaos Emeralds, the Eclipse Cannon has been transformed into an extremely powerful bomb which, if detonated, will cause an explosion greater than that of a supernova. At that moment, Tails realizes that it is the energy generated by those gems that is driving the colony towards Earth. Therefore, the only way to prevent the collision is to deactivate the emeralds. Upon hearing this, Knuckles says he can use the Master Emerald to turn off the power and enlists the help of Sonic and Eggman's robots to get to the cannon. When the group reaches its final destination, Knuckles spots the emeralds, but his team is surprised by the sudden arrival of a robot monster. Immediately, Sonic prepares for battle, but Shadow appears just in time and orders the group to concentrate on extracting the Chaos Emeralds while he distracts the monster. While Knuckles enlists the help of the Master Emerald to deactivate the energy of the other gems, Shadow uses his speed to evade the giant lizard's attacks and tries to destroy it. When he realizes that he won't be able to eliminate this enemy alone, the Hedgehog activates Chaos Control and teleports him out of the colony. At this point, the team believes they have gotten rid of the creature, but Eggman soon gets in touch to inform them that the lizard is still alive and has attached itself to the outside of the space colony in order to pull it faster towards Earth. Upon hearing this, Sonic and Shadow decide to team up and combine their powers to absorb the energy of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. In this way, the pair manage to teleport out of the colony and join forces to try to destroy the monster. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans see a huge red sphere approaching the planet at high speed and, around it, there are 2 small points of light radiating from the hedgehog's bodies. When the colony is about to pass through the Earth's atmosphere, Sonic and Shadow unite their powers to activate Chaos Control and transport the space colony back to a stable orbit. After the planet is saved, Eggman decides to flee with his robots to avoid being arrested, and Sonic is welcomed back by his friends, who are relieved to know that he is alive. On the other hand, Shadow wasn't as lucky, and Sonic reveals that he sacrificed himself to save all of humanity. After accomplishing his mission, the Blue Hedgehog gathers his friends and returns home, because now he has managed to clean up his image and prove his innocence. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.